Hello, I'm Dale Matchek, Chairman of the Econ program at Northwood University. Welcome to the Freedom Seminar. This afternoon's presentation is by Mr. Glenn Wilson, who's a proud alumnus of our university. During his time at Northwood, Glenn played football for us, and he learned the Northwood idea. And since then, he has gone out and lived the values of the Northwood idea. He's enjoyed a successful business career, but more recently, he's turned to more social entrepreneurship, and he's making a difference in the city of Flint, his hometown. In 2010, he co-founded an organization called Communities First in order to focus on providing affordable housing, economic development, arts and culture outreach, and environmental programs in Flint, Michigan. But since then, it's grown into a multi-million-dollar nonprofit. It's expanded outside of Flint into Saginaw, Detroit, other communities. And it's even gaining international influence now as Glenn has joined Next City Vanguard and is working on community development projects in Australia and elsewhere. He has been honored by the Michigan Chronicle as with their 40 Under 40 award, which recognizes the contributions of millennials to their communities. He's also the recipient of the Young Professional Award presented by the Flint and Genesee Chamber of Commerce and the American Express Aspire Award from the National Trust for Historic Preservation. So, Glenn, we're awfully proud of you, and we welcome you back to Northwood University. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Dale. I greatly appreciate it, and so happy that Northwood even think about it in your committee for having me back today. I think probably Dr. John and the Innovation Center might have had a little something to do with this as well. And a few people that I've known there at Northwood for many years, and I actually remember attending this back as a student when I was at Northwood University. So it's interesting because you never thought, you would be the one coming back speaking at your university at the Freedom Seminar, that your teachers would give your econ teachers or, different business instruction. I think it was Mr. Honorcamp at the time, that gave us different points for coming back to be a part of this. But like I say, I'm honored to be here. I have definitely enjoyed hearing the perspectives from the other speakers over the last couple of days. And I hope, that you have taken something from each of them, because I think each of them have something that we can always take. You might not see all the impacts of what some of these speakers will talk about, maybe at this particular time, depending if you're a student. Some of you might see it as an alum. But my talk today is going to be consistent with some of what you've heard, but it also takes more of like a personal tone to me. And I'll be sharing a part of my story, the impact of my childhood trauma, and how we can use what I call 3Ps to overcome our own challenges while empowering others in the process. At times, people proclaim to be an expert, but I don't, take that route. I'm definitely not an expert on trauma, but I know definitely, I know firsthand the impacts of it, and I know that I've helped, and our organization has helped, our team has helped thousands of people succeed in the face of like unbelievable hardships and circumstances. So we're gonna take a little time to dive in, and it's because I really want to leave time for plenty of questions if you have some. And I'm also used to having audience participation. So if I ask a few questions and as we go along, I would hope that you would share answers in the chat so we can get a little dialogue going if there's an opportunity. But just a little bit about me. But I grew up in Flint, Michigan, a Rust Belt, blue collar city that was once home to an American dream and a booming economy. And we've been talking about the economy, over these last few days about What is it going to look like, right now with having justice, through economics? And, I'm curious, and this is just, I guess, one of my first questions is, what do you know about Flint? What have you heard about Flint? Right? Uh, we'll come back to that a little bit. We'll come back to a little bit later, but I'm gonna be interested to see some of your responses. So please just put that in the chat. But to get back to Flint, at one time we had one of the highest per capita incomes per household in the country. I mean, people moved to Flint from all over the United States to work at General Motors because of its excellent pay. It was also called Generous Motors by locals. And the reason why I call it generous is because, how great they paid and the benefits, and everybody wanted to work at General Motors. The city also has several nicknames, Bedrock, Fly City. And if you're from Flint, you might be called a Flintstone or a Flintite. But as you see, there are many different nicknames, and depending on where you're from, you can have a nickname too. But the term Flintstone and the name became super famous because of the MSU basketball team that won a national championship with Mateen Cleaves, Morris Peterson, Charlie Bell, Antonio Smith, Jason Richardson, all those great players that you saw in the NFL. But we were also known for a few other things. As far as like home of the Flint Tropics film, semi-pro, Will Ferrell, put him down in the low post, give it back, and you pass it back, give it back, right? Most people don't know this, but actually Chrysler started in Flint. Walter P. Chrysler actually started Chrysler here in Flint. They end up moving, but most people don't know that Chrysler here. And it was also going to be the start of Ford at one particular moment, but there was no space here because there was a few other companies here that didn't want Ford to create a company here. It's interesting when you learn about these histories. However, we were also known to start the community education model that is still going on today across the country. So as you see, Flint was known and is still known for many great things. And there's a lot more, famous people or other things that Flint is known for, but I'm just giving you some just high level things that you might know, either basketball or manufacturing wise. Although we are known for these great things, our city has also experienced much trauma. We've held the title of the most dangerous city in America. We've been labeled as the murder capital of the world. Experienced a devastating lead water crisis, and like the rest of all the world, had to deal with the current COVID-19 pandemic stacked on top of the water crisis. We had struggles with local government, our school system. We're low, ranked extremely low to health outcomes, and we were also once a city that was built for over 200 and some thousand people, and now our population here recently was just under 100,000. Yes, there might seem to be a lot stacked against Flint families. Some of it could be self-inflicted. Some of it's not self-inflicted. But if you ask people from Flint about Flint and what they know about their city or about our community, they would tell you, and I would say the same thing, that we have some of the most amazing, resilient, stick to it, people that grind, very intelligent residents that work together for a change. As a matter of fact, today, as I'm sitting here talking to you, there's like a citywide cleanup that's happening right now with thousands of residents picking up trash all through the city to address blight and clearing debris. I'm curious to see what some of you actually have said if you know anything about Flint. So I'm going to open up the chat real quick and see what have you heard. All right, Flint water crisis. Yes, definitely known for that. No, average when the team that comes to mind. Yes, General Motors that recently closed the plant. Yeah, they definitely closed some plants here. Buick, I think it was Chevrolet, and with the General Motors plants. But I don't know if people have heard, but like recently they did some major investments here that brought back a few thousand jobs. Not as many as we would want to see, but there's places now that you can drive in our community and there's just a sea of concrete where these plants that took up, hundreds of acres that's no longer there. Flint Town. Yeah, that's an interesting that's an interesting one. With the Netflix one. Someone took some classes. Yeah, absolutely. There's some awesome professors. University of Michigan Flint. If you came to the university, you saw there's some great downtown is definitely live again. Definitely has some great musical artists. Absolutely. Back to the Bricks. Yep, that's definitely what we're known for, as well as the Bricks in the middle of the city. And Back to the Bricks, one of the largest car cruises, in the country now. And we actually do an event there called Art on the Bricks, our organization that I'll talk a little bit more about. And Art on the Bricks is a particular event that we do where we bring car themes in and have artists come from around the state where they come in and paint murals. And so that's been a great event. And so McLaren, okay, all right, McLaren is a great health system there. I know your president over there, Chad. So no, thanks a lot. So now that you understand a little bit about my home story, like I'll share a little bit just about, my story. But I'm Glenn Wilson, President CEO, and I think Dr. Dale had spoke a little bit about this earlier. But our mission is to build healthy, vibrant communities through economic development, affordable housing, and innovative programming. And you'll have an opportunity to see a little of that on the screen. And so my wife and I are co-founders of this thriving nonprofit organization that is literally changing lives and communities. And we have completed over $50 million in real estate investment in over the last 10 years. We provide programs to over 25,000 people annually, our organization, and we engage hundreds of volunteers in our work. But, you see all these great things. You see these awesome pictures. Not bad from a kid from Flint, right? Like it doesn't seem bad. Well, the journey gets here. The journey to get here has been very interesting. And I know my session mentions the 3 Ps, and we'll get to that shortly. But it's important for you to understand how they came about. Often, people see the public accolades, the award, the appointments, the success of the organization, and they really miss out on the things that happen behind the scenes. And when I'm talking about the things like behind the scenes, those are the things that you might not see. And I mean, it's great, to be acknowledged. It's great to be asked to come back here and to speak. But I just look at myself as just being an ordinary person that so happens to do what people feel as though is extraordinary things. And I think we all have an ability to be an ordinary person in whatever it is that we do in our lives to do these extraordinary things. And people miss the part of successful leaders' lives where failure, sacrifice, dedication, hard work come in addition to like the normal challenges that most leaders face when you've like experienced trauma, right, in their lives. Like I've experienced trauma in my life. And as an example, but in 1992, I was a kid living in a fairly nice neighborhood in the city of Flint with my mother, my father, and my siblings. My sister, Jeree, she loved to sing. I mean, sing like a bird. You would always hear her singing. She used to sing this one song I always have in my head. It was like, "Oh Happy Day," and but that's the one I could think of the most. And so I don't want to start singing the song because I might get rid of some of you. They might jump off the screen. And my brother, Lance, he was destined to be a soccer star. I mean, this guy, you would go on the soccer field and he could play as good as anyone. My cousin Robert, he lived with us and he was an amazing artist. And I mean, we're at these age now of like 10, 9, 8, 7. Um, and I mean, when I say an amazing artist, like he could draw Bart Simpson and all these artists, I mean, by hand, very quickly, and it was great. But one night in May, tragedy struck my life and changed my life forever. And being from Flint, like there might be an assumption that I'm going to share a story about gun violence. And you know what? That might be true, but I mean, I've experienced gun violence, but that's not my story, right? Or some type of abuse, but that's not it. One day, I was asleep, 7 years old, and I was in my sleep, and I heard yelling, Glenn, Glenn, calling all the kids' names. I remember being asleep. You know how you wake up when you're a kid and you think somebody got in trouble, somebody didn't wash the dishes, somebody left something out, and I'm half asleep, right? I'm the youngest one out of everyone. And I remember getting up, not even woke, and I remember running to the stairs thinking somebody's in trouble. And as I was walking down the stairs, half asleep, and my parent grabbed me and shook me. I'm like, oh, I think I'm in trouble. And they were like, wake up. And I woke up and I turned around. And when I turned around, right behind me, there's flames, all behind me, like all the way to the ceiling. And it threw me because I just came through that. I didn't see it. I didn't feel it. I didn't know what was going on. And that was the night that my sister, my brother, and my cousin died in a house fire. And I was the only one to make it out, except with my mother and father, and they were downstairs because they couldn't even get up there. And growing up, you know, you began to wonder to yourself, you know, why did I make it? How did I make it? Right? I thought about that for a long time. Like, how do you experience that one thing in your life as a child, and how does it make you into the person that you are today? But that trauma that I experienced as a child has major implications. Has major implications for families and outcomes. And I'm not sure if you've ever heard of like ACEs, adverse child experiences. The idea is that there are 10 questions that can give you insight about how a traumatic child life has been and can be an indicator of future outcome. And here's what families in Flint are facing right now. So if you see right now, it's a poverty rate of 40.4%, a crime index out of 100, we're number 5, with 100 being the best, the safest place. Unemployment 9.4, healthcare 17.7, education 3.8. And if you had 6 or more of the ACEs, you know, these adverse, your mortality drops 20 years. So your life expectancy drops 20 years. So are you telling me like right now that even just with myself, right, that if you ask yourself these questions, right, and you look at the things, even just, and you can go online, and I can put that in the chat about how you can actually go and take an ACE. You can go and take an ACE test yourself. But the idea, there are 10 questions that can give you insight about how a child's traumatic life has been and can be an indicator for future outcomes. And, you know, like I say, and that's what Flint for right now. So my ACEs was about a 6 score. So statistically, this is where I should have been. So as you see, sorry about that. Let me go back. Adverse childhood experiences, emotional, physical abuse, household dysfunction, mother treated household, substance abuse, all these things that you can see, right? If you have a 6, look, that's toxic stress, right? And all these different things that you can look at as far as how they indicating where your life should be. So as you think about it, I mean, as for me being a six, like right now, I probably shouldn't be sitting here in front of you right now having this conversation with you, or you looking at me as being this, oh wow, like, my life wasn't a life that where I came with everything of privilege. Now, however, I had hardworking parents, but my parents at one point got a divorce through trauma. But it shows that there are so many things that happen in life. And those are the things that help me to become who I am today. And this is where we're going to get into the 3Ps to talk a little bit about some aspects of my life, a story about some things that I've done, and how I've used these 3 principles to help attack a lot of different aspects in my life. And the first one we're going to talk about is passion. I don't know if you ever heard of the quote that love makes you do crazy things, right? So I don't know. Have any of you that's watching this, this is another question for you. Have you done some crazy things that you were in love about, right? Like, you're either a girlfriend, a boyfriend, significant other, a business decision, and you just like passionately in love and just crazy about it. Can you remember that? If you agree that you have something that you've done that's just crazy, you can put it in the chat that you understand, or hand clap, or I'm not for sure if you can do emojis or anything. But this quote is, love makes you do some crazy things, insane things in a million years you never see yourself do. But guess what? You see yourself doing them. And so for me, I've always, right, my passion in life has always been to help people, right? That's always been a consistent theme for me. At one point, I was passionate about football, and when I played there at Northwood, I thought one day I would play professional football. I was in the healthcare realm and was a partner in the healthcare business because I saw that there was a great need for quality healthcare to be given to our seniors and families and people that was experiencing a lot of issues that were at home, and wanted to see what we could do to provide most things. Then, while in the healthcare business, I saw that there was a need for adequate, affordable housing for our clients. And as I began getting out there in the community, I said, man, I can't believe people are living in conditions like this. And what can we do to solve some of these problems? And so I started becoming a little bit more passionate about housing. And at this time, I had a limousine service, I had a healthcare business. And just like I said the quote earlier, love will make you do some crazy things. So at this time, I said, you know what? I'm going to see what could I do to offer what this passion is and I'm feeling about quality, accessible, affordable housing, and what could we do to solve a problem. And so when we started this organization in 2010, it wasn't even in the wildest dreams to even think that I would even start an organization like this, because at that time, my businesses were doing fairly successful. So I really didn't have a need to do anything else. And when you said I co-founded with my wife, she was not my wife at the time. We were just talking and friends at that time. And while we had this discussion about this organization, I said, hey, look, I'm a person of faith, just telling you this. That's something that's important for me. And through prayer, said, I'm going to start an organization. Well, no, before I do that, let's go find out and see if there's anybody else out in the community doing this work. And so we went out because I'm passionate, right? So at this point, I can actually write checks to solve some problems, right? Maybe not huge checks, but, I could do something to make a little bit of damage, or we both could do something. And while we were going out talking to organizations, we started finding out nobody was doing the work that we were asking. And it's like, hey, can we help you? Is there anything we can do? And, people just really weren't paying attention. And so what we decided to do after talking to people, after people were just closing the doors, we just said, okay, what should we do? So at this time, I said, you know what? I'm going to sell the company and I'm going to start this nonprofit organization. and walk away from what I'm doing and let's see what happens. And so even though I have like this, serial entrepreneur background, like I've failed at different times starting businesses in the past, many times, right? I mean, I probably have more bad businesses than I have successful ones. It's just, everything that you learn from the bad ones that makes the successful ones, right? So this is about persistence. So always had a rule that within a business, if it doesn't work within 3 years and it's not doing fairly successful, it's just going to walk away from it. So I remember having this conversation with, at that time, is my friend, and while we were just talking, I said, hey, I'm gonna do this, and what do you think? And like, what should she care for? I mean, at this point, we're not married. That might seem like a bad idea, but she could walk at any point, right? If she decided she wanted to be with me or not, because hey, this guy is going to go from basically not making any money to go, but like I say, love and passion makes you do some crazy things. So what we ended up doing was applying for a HUD 202. We ended up applying for, well, I have to say the funny story, but we ended up applying for a grant for a particular project, which was a old school building. And when we applied for this old school building, we decided to see if it could work. So we pulled the team together. We said, okay, team, why don't you come together? Let's see what we can do to start this organization to see if we can solve this problem of providing adequate, affordable senior housing. And while we were doing that, we began to continue to go forward with doing this particular project. And what we knew we were going to need was some, persistence, right? Because like your passion now, you've got to take it into the second P, right? Which is a persistence aspect. And the persistence, let's just read this quote by Calvin Coolidge, which is a quote that I always love, but it says, nothing in this world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. Interesting, right? Is how do you have that type of persistence, right, as an individual, as a person, to use that to make change? So we started the organization. And while we started the organization and we applied for this funding, so we sent in all this paperwork. It took us probably, 18 months just to pull this application together to do like one project that was like a $5 million project that could provide 24 senior apartments to low-income seniors. That was a picture that I showed you earlier at the beginning of the presentation about it. But when we were able to apply for that, we were told that after waiting and hear back, they called us back and said, hey, the organization did not receive the funds. And I said, the organization didn't receive the funds. So I said, okay, this is interesting. Well, why would the organization not receive the funds? I felt like we did all the work. We had the passion. We put the team together. And what is wrong? So during that time, I still had persistence. I ended up going back to find the article about the fire at my child, when I was a child, as an adult, because I was questioning. I said, okay, well, I made this big step. I had all this passion, this persistence. And while I was reading the story in like 2011-12, if you go to the second page over in the right-hand corner, this was like so crazy. This is right while we're developing this first project, right around the time when I found out I didn't receive, or our team didn't receive this project. And it says that a man in Milford, Michigan, this was back in 1992, right? It says that a man, and then I got couldn't really get the article because it was so old. But basically what it was when I looked up, but a man wanted to turn an old historical school building in Milford that was built in 48 into 28 senior apartments. And we were only doing 24 senior apartments of a school in Flint. And that was astounding to me. It was written 20 years prior, but it provided me confirmation that I needed to keep pushing forward. So when the project that we had was Oak Street Senior Apartments, and we found out we didn't receive funding, and then I read that, I said, okay, something's not right. So I remember I called the United States Department of HUD, and I said, hey, HUD, you're going to have to give me a call. You're going to have to let me know what can we do to come in and see what happened, because something's got to be wrong. Because I'm like, at this point, there's too many things that's in alignment. There's too many things that I prayed about, and I feel like right now this thing should be happening. And so the lady told me at this time, she said, well, after we award the funds out to everyone else, we'll sit down with you, we'll do a debrief. But I just kept bugging. I kept bugging. So I called the lady again. I called her probably every other day saying, hey, can I get in for a debrief before you award the funds? And she said, you know what? No, we can't do that right now. So what we did as a team, we sat down, we wrote a letter. We wrote one letter that we could go and, see if we can get in. And so they finally said, okay, come in. So they had us come in over the holiday. And this was over like a Christmas holiday. So everybody's off work. We sat down with the lady. She finally said, okay, come in, we'll talk about it. Once we talked about it, we realized there were some discrepancies in our application. Once we realized there were some discrepancies in our application, we said, well, what can we do to rebut this? She said, well, I'm not for sure what more we could tell you. You did a great job. Everyone filled out. You did a great job. You should come back again next year and apply. If you straighten out these areas. I said, well, I think we should have got it right now. So she said, well, I'm not for sure what to tell you, but if you want to come back. So we ended up writing a letter, and we sent it to every department in HUD that had to do with this particular project. I'm talking about, I sent it to, at that point, I think it was Secretary Sean Donovan. Maurice Jones was the assistant secretary, and I sent it to probably 20 or 25 people. So this is like where this persistence is coming in, right? It's not taking no if you know you're supposed to be doing something, and believing in your team. Like when you have a great team, like the work doesn't stop when it's persistence, right? It's like you can fail, but like how you respond to the failure that you see. So even though it looks like we failed when it looks like we failed, but if you feel like you have a great team, right, and you feel like the things that you're doing are making sense, then you have to go after the things in which you want to go after in life. And so once we sent that letter, we ended up finally getting a response back, and they had to end up rescoring our application. And we found out that they owed us some additional points. However, even though we found out they owed us some additional points, there was a whole point in between there, right? Like I'm talking about there was a piece way in between the between sending that letter, talking to the people, and then seeing what could happen. And that's where like this third P comes into play, which is the patience, right? Is that we learn a lot about a people when they have to wait. And I learned a lot about myself when I had to wait, right? So as you see, this is people in a waiting room, right? And I always think about patience. Have you ever, and this is me asking you another story, like have you ever been in a situation where you've been in an emergency and you feel hopeless, right? And you feel like all you can do is wait, right? But in the midst of this waiting, there becomes a point of, I don't know, or you begin to question yourself. Or this is a time where you might have multiple voices in your head telling you what you did wrong immediately. Or you think about your regrets. Or we try to psych ourselves out to believing that we don't deserve something, that maybe it wasn't supposed to happen to us, or something like this was supposed to happen to us. And those times of patience and when we have to sit there. And these are the things that people don't normally want to talk about, because in patience, you still have to keep your integrity. You still have to keep your character. Now, I had people reaching out to us with this whole HUD thing and saying, you should sue them for doing you wrong, or you should reach out to them and say, I can't believe that, this happened. You should put it on the news. They were giving us all the negative things that we should do instead of trying to find a way of how to build a bridge and how to accept patients and let patients have his good work in the things that we were doing. And I'll even just give you just a recent example. I was applying for a large board position that I was looking forward to getting, and I feel as though I did everything right. This is like a corporate board, and I felt like I did everything I was supposed to do to get on this corporate board. And at the end, it didn't work out, and it was so hard for me momentarily. And I said, it's not about me not getting it, even though I know there might have been situations where that could have worked against me, as being a gentleman, as being could it have been something to do with anything, right? And this talks about justice. It talks about economics, but you begin to question yourself. Was it because I'm black? Was it because of this, or was it because of that? You can have all these different. Was it because maybe did I need more education? What was these particular things that I could have questioned myself on to make these things change the way that they did? But you have to take a high road, right? You have to figure out is that it's the short game or it's the long game. And whether we realize it or not, is patience is one of the best unique opportunities, is one of the most opportune times that we can use in our lives in order to help mold us, in order to show us who we are while we're sitting in those moments of uncomfortableness and not manipulating things to make sure that they turn out in our favor. Working hard, you still have to work even when you're impatient, but you have to work in a way that is not manipulating, that's not putting your character on the line, that's not making you do anything against your integrity. And those are the things that set you up for the success. And so I decided, to send out a message and say, hey, even although I'm disappointed, I know there's another opportunity. And next time that opportunity comes around, I'll hopefully get it. And you never know who you're talking to. And just saying that, you never know if one of those people that sits on that corporate board sits on another corporate board. So how you respond can really help you open up opportunities and resources for you to be successful in the future. And so I'll get back to Oak School and the school that we applied for. But like I say, they ended up owing us points for that application. And they had to end up going back to Congress, reappropriating us about, I think a little over $5 million to get that project done. And you can't believe the amount of people that were negative against that project. People that said it wasn't going to happen. It was an idea. And how could you even do anything to even possibly get HUD or, United States Department of HUD to change their mind, a governmental agency? And it really doesn't matter what other people think. And I think that's the other thing about patience is that you really have to, and I think Dan Gilbert says this, and I heard him say this before, but about crowding out the noise, is that when you're doing anything big or you're doing anything great or things that you're passionate about, you have to learn how to crowd out the noise and push out the naysayers and understand what your focus is, what your passion is, and the things that you're doing to get to the places where you want to get to. And, the 3 P's, are passion, persistence, and patience. And as a person with an ACEs score of 6, yeah, I shouldn't have made it. I shouldn't be successful. I should be very sickly. I shouldn't be a college graduate. It's very important to remember that childhood trauma can be a predictor of a lot of outcomes, but it is ultimately something that sets its tone, and it's set in stone. It's easy to tell someone to pick themselves up by them bootstraps, but I think George Washington Carver said, I've never seen a man pick himself up by his bootstraps. And you know what? I still haven't seen that. Work hard and eventually they will succeed. For that, some is true, but in reality, for many, they need help. For those who have the means or are privileged, There are family members and friends that can support them. In communities where we work, many of our clients don't have members or friends in high places, and they have limited knowledge and resources to make it on their own. Our organization acts as it supports a network to provide resources and access to opportunities that fill gaps. And we challenge our clients to do the same work, but support them in the process. So just like here recently, through the COVID, pandemic, we provided like $100 gift cards for groceries and consumer energy, relief for those that were burdened during the pandemic. We end up installing internet and providing devices for low income families to work and remain connected and pursue educational opportunities. We have also received so many expressions of gratitude or stories of why extra support was needed and appreciated. We are always reminded that unless you've had a need, you can't understand someone else's need. I want to share a couple stories about our residents. And so one, we had a lady by the name of Lisa, and Lisa was she came to our complex, one of our affordable housing developments. This is not the senior housing because we've done a lot of real estate development since then. But she moved into one of our complexes that were people for homeless, at risk of homeless, people with special needs, people with addiction issues. And Antoinette would tell you, we sat down and had a conversation with her probably about a year ago. We see her all the time and talk to her at different times. But she was talking about how appreciative she was, and when she first came in, is how she was treated like a human, and how she was treated as though she had value, right? Even when she didn't know or felt like she had value. And it's on us as individuals to recognize and know who people are, even when they don't see it in themselves. And Antoinette went from being homeless to now we find ways to help build and get families out of poverty. She's bought into the system. She received job training services. She ended up getting a certificate in multiple different things. She ended up getting a better full-time job. And now she's moving actually out of affordable housing into other permanent housing, where she can, live sufficiently and has a living wage where she can support her and her family. Now, when you hear stories like that, people say, well, that's anyone. Anybody can do that. Yeah, sometimes we think anybody can do it, but that's just not the case. There are some people that's going to be able to succeed and some people are not going to succeed. But we have to understand that we are all humans and we all have our part to play. I'm also going to tell you about another young man by the name of John. John was a person that was struggling with addiction when he first moved in. We ended up working with John, getting him the services that he needs and supports. He ended up buying into the system as well. He didn't even have custody of his daughter. And just because of his addiction, didn't see his family often because he was never told that he was someone that people cared about, someone of value. And so we began to empower him with the resources and tools that he needed. And John here, we actually kind of cried a little bit when he moved out, but he ended up purchasing a new home, got a great job, has a new woman, has a child on the way. And it's so great to see when someone like John, when someone like John is making the changes that he made in his life to become successful. And when we are able to play a part in that, it is great. So, yeah, as you see, the 3 Ps are helpful to us as leaders, but they have been even more helpful to me as I work to help others and empower them to change their lives. No matter where you work or what industry you are pursuing, you have the power to use these 3 Ps in every aspect of your life. And so I'm going to show you a quick video. And I believe Dale. All right, let me go back to some of the.
I think of a quote where it says, people will never remember the clothes you wear, the car you drive, but people will remember what you do for others. Me and Essence are from the City of Flint. We saw that there was a great need for the community to be revitalized. Right now, like with General Motors, we had 88,000 jobs here in our community, and now we're down to around 8,000. I mean, think about it. We had a city of 200,000 people that now is a city of under 100,000. I mean, that's a drastic drop. I see the problem, you know what I'm saying? But I more or less focus on the solution than the problem. That's kind of how I am. It's like where people see dirt, I see diamonds. Communities First is a nonprofit community development corporation that focuses on 4 areas: affordable housing, economic development, arts and culture outreach, and environmental education.
That people have become discouraged, they've become disconnected, but the one thing that we bring to the table is results.
So this is Coolidge Elementary School. We're working right now on redeveloping this school building. So it's 55 units. It's going to have a community center, so we're going to use the gym again. We're going to build a brand new building in the back with 30 new units, and everybody can come here. So this is going to be a place to connect the community. We are changing the scope of how people look at a homeless individual. People are people. People have difficulties. You don't know people's story.
The vast majority of people are one, job loss away, one accident away from being homeless if they don't have family and friends that can support them in times of difficulty.
I would go out into the community a lot, and I saw that there was a need for quality affordable housing. Some people think because a thing says affordable housing, that means that individuals that are moving in your community is going to destroy it. And that's not true.
Ooh, so excited. I'm so nervous. I can't wait. Going in. Oh my God. Man, I was just telling him how excited I am, how homeless. I've been homeless for almost 2 years. And I'm so excited to be in this apartment. All mine, nobody I have to ask, can I sleep there? Can I come into your home and use your bathroom? Can I get a meal? I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be off the streets. These are joy tears. Joy tears. Man, this is awesome. It's beautiful.
So some people might call me crazy. I guess I'm crazy for progress. Crazy for solutions. Crazy to see change happen.
Right. I am definitely, Dr. Dale, I am definitely open to any questions if anyone has any. So like I say, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for everything you're doing, Glenn. So you definitely brought a different perspective to the seminar this afternoon, and I'm sure there's going to be some questions. I want to encourage people to put their questions in that Q&A box on the right-hand side. Now, Glenn, I'm an economist, so I'm going to ask you an economics question. Now, we've had some people here today, this weekend, talking about poverty. And they've given their explanation, for what the government role is. And we've kind of had a couple of different general approaches. One is, well, government can really help by doing less of these things. Okay, government needs to stop doing this. Government needs to stop doing that. But and the other approach is government needs to spend more money on this. Government needs to do more of that. What's your take on what government's responsibility is with respect to poverty and how that intersects with the efforts of people like yourself who are trying to private sector to help?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a great question. I've definitely heard different aspects of, like you said, different people's answers over the last few days. One of the biggest things that I think there becomes the disconnect between the government, private sector, and what happens is that people are doing things to people, not with them. And what happens with people in poverty is people that might be of privilege feel as though these should be the things that people should need inherently when they don't actually ask the individuals who have the needs what they actually need or what they actually want. So what ends up happening, there's a lot of money that's misappropriated or spent because this is what I, as a privileged person, feel as though they should need. And then we make these economical decisions not based off of, now you base them off numbers, but then they forget the human element of it, right? It's because you might be providing them food and somebody might say, well, I need a car, right? Or I need transportation to get to a job. Or somebody says, I need proper health care because my kid can't afford, this XYZ, thing that I have to pay for that, that makes me spend $4,000 a month of my income, paying for, medical treatment of some sort, or, daycare, or whatever those things could be. Where I've noticed is that it's more of the, yes, you use numbers. I think numbers are very important. Like I always say, you have to be mission focused, but business minded, right? But with any business, you have to find out what your clients need. And I think what happens is that the government and the private sector really needs to look at the clients that they're serving and ask them what do they need. So then while they're producing something, you see what I'm saying? While they're producing something, it's being produced something that can actually meet the need. So then you're not just spreading money. Like have you ever went to you person can even think about their father or just even think about or their mother, and you go to your mom, you say, Mom, I want to buy some shoes. And they're like, well, the problem is, like, why are you keeping coming to ask me for shoes? And then you say, well, I need shoes to play basketball. Well, okay, you like playing basketball, you need shoes. So really the thing is you need money. It's not just the shoes, because if you had money, you wouldn't come and ask me for money, right? So the thing is that if that young person needed a job, right, then what job skills can I get this individual to make sure they have the money to buy their own shoes, right? Because just buying the shoes inherently is not going to solve the problem, because they're going to need shoes again, right? So it's empowering the ones you can. So we see ourselves as like being the bridge between that, of bridging between what an economist or what an individual in the government they say they want and what the community needs are. And then we bridge those things. And then that's how we're providing services to the people that we serve, to make sure that we're providing them things that they need. But that's why we're seeing success happen in such a great way. And also that housing is a base where we can help all economic challenges. So if a person has housing, and they have housing that's near healthcare, near grocery stores, pharmacies, and the things that they just need on an everyday, or good education, that will take care of so many other people's problems. Because I think it was it Tanner? I can't remember his name. I might be saying that wrong. He spoke yesterday about housing policies that get people away from, improper zoning or different things of that nature that keeps people from building like quality, affordable housing that we build. And that keeps people from having access to the things they need access to, which would quit burdening the system. You see what I'm saying? So it's a very interesting, it's a interesting cycle where it seems like the government should also work on not perpetuating poverty within policies, because there are certain policies that are created just like you have. I'll give you one particular policy that really irks me, and then I'll get off your question. But there's one where, like, if a person is receiving a certain type of subsidy from the government, they can't go to school full time. What? That doesn't make any sense. Right, exactly. So it's like something that contradicts a person going to college full time and receiving a subsidy from the government. Like, those two can't go together. And it's like, okay, but if you want people to be off subsidy, why can't they spend their subsidies to go to school full time? So it ends up taking a poor person or a person that's lower income, that if they wanted to get done with school in 3 years, if they had the subsidy to help support, it'd take them 7 years. And then at that point, people start to give up because it just takes too long. So.
Well, here's a question from somebody else that has played Northwood football. Bob Love asks, what other ways can we work individually to empower people around us who are in need?
So I love that question. Empowerment is about giving people access, right? And using the privilege and the power that you have in order to let people be empowered, right? And understanding that being empowered means that you're allowing someone to share in the power and the access that you have. And what happens is people think that empowering is, oh, let me give you this food and that should solve a problem. And that's solving an immediate need. So you have to be a person that removes barriers. So no matter where you're at in your life, no matter where you're at in your career, even if you're in school, if you have people that you want to empower, is you find ways to open up access and remove barriers for individuals in any way that you can. And if that has to do with you giving up some of your power to share it, and what I mean by share power is that sometimes people get to a point of prestige, whereas they become gatekeepers to other people, to removing and empowering other people. I look at my access as a way to empower other people and to give them power, so then they don't need me. That's the true meaning of empowerment. And a lot of people like to be needed and have a savior complex.
Beautiful. Next question. Do any legislators visit these communities, and are they aware of all that you do to help others?
Yes, we do have legislators that come and visit communities. Sometimes they are aware of the work because you try to express it to them. But I think what ends up always happening is, you have lobbyists, right? And, people with big checkbooks that are able to cut, that gets the attention. And so when Bob asked that question earlier about empowering, so what we're trying to do is find ways where we can empower our community voices, because there are a lot more voices to make change with legislators. And that's some of the work that we're working on right now. There's some advocacy and policy work. But great relationship locally, that we have with legislators, yes. And we also have some with, places in different places around the country as well. But we're always looking, to share our work and our model, with other legislators in other places.
Now, I wonder if there's a multiplier effect to the people you help. Do they then turn in some way, when you've empowered them, do they then empower others? I mean, can you see beyond your immediate influence a ripple effect?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I can give you multiple different examples about that. Like, one in particular is that sometimes people think when people are low income or people of less means moves into a community, they think that it's actually going to tear the community down and rip it apart. people are going to bring in all this crime and all this other stuff. And we've had a ripple effect where people have moved into the neighborhood. People say, oh, we don't want this. We don't want these people in our neighborhood. They'll move into the neighborhood. We'll empower the residents to go and get engaged in the community, whether through volunteerism, become a part of the neighborhood associations. And then they go and belong to these neighborhood associations. They become active in the community, and then they end up becoming superstars, right? And then people are like, well, oh wow, well if they would never moved in, we would have never had this great person. You see what I'm saying? Doing the work that they're doing. I got a call. Oh yeah, I got a call yesterday from a lady that owns a business right next to one of our complexes or one of our communities. And she said, I just want to tell you, thank you so much for doing what you did. I said, well, what are you talking about? And I haven't talked to this lady in years. And she said, the people in your community take so good care of my building next door. They cut her grass. Somebody had came and sprayed graffiti on it, and they actually went over there and helped her clean it off. And they were so upset that somebody sprayed graffiti on her building. They make sure they pick up trash in her parking lot. And this is not even stuff she's asking for, but she's like, they just took ownership. And she also has a job training program. So people are actually getting engaged with her job training program as well, that we work with to provide people other job opportunities. And then Lisa that I talked about earlier, she's actually a peer educator at a local shelter where she actually used to reside. Nice. So she actually works at the shelter where she used to live and actually provides services to other people there.
That's great.
Yeah.
So here's a good question. You're talking to Northwood students here. In what way did Northwood shape your values and desire to help others?
Yeah. So if you think of, if you actually go to our website or go to Communities First Facebook page, you will see that we're actually doing a series right now called Go Mad, Go Make a Difference by, Coach Pat Rima. So Coach, I remember we used to go out on the football field and he said, go make a difference. It's not about you, fellas. It's about the team. And it's funny because sometimes when people say you're never going to know what that means until like you grow up later in life and you wonder what that means. And what make a difference meant is just that everything that you do, make a difference in it. Like it always seems like it's all about you until you really start realizing that the world is so much larger than who you are. And the more that you help people and the more that you make a difference, the more that it actually impacts your life to actually help you get to where you want to get to. So it's like, the laws of the universe, the more you give, the more you receive. And so I would say, that's a big one that's really helped mold me. I can think of some other things like Mr. Wilson. We weren't related, but I think it was Mr. Wilson that used to be a teacher there. He sparked my interest in development because he used to work in the city in Midland in the planning department. And, he used to just talk to me about some of the projects that used to be there. And it's definitely had some impacts on me.
Jacob asks, what do your plans for expansion look like?
So right now we have offices in Flint and Detroit, but we operate across the state of Michigan and we're in Indiana as well. And we're actually going to be doing some more work in Ohio and Illinois. So that's kind of our plans right now, is more within the Midwest. But we've had opportunities to go in other places across the country, but you have to, like I said earlier, you have to be, mission focused and business minded.
Okay, so we are pushing up against it here. We might have time for one more question if somebody wants to post it. And if not, Glenn, I'm going to ask you to, we do have that question here, so I'll postpone. I was going to ask you to have some parting words of wisdom for us so you can think about that. But in the meantime, we have to deal with this question here. How do you determine who qualifies for help?
I guess it depends on the type of help. We usually do it like on a scale. So we have, surveys that we put out, or information that we request from our clients when they sit down with us. So then that allows us to know what their particular needs are and how we can help them. because we found that there are certain, and then it also depends on certain funding parameters, because certain funding only allows you to do certain things. But we've had it where, you'll have a middle class family that don't receive any benefits, just make over the poverty line, don't receive any type of benefits, and they might need some additional help with groceries, a middle class family. And, we're able to help those type of, families as well. And then some individuals that, qualify for certain things, we try to make sure that we set them up with the resources to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts. So if somebody can sign up for, food stamps and they need food, we try to make sure we get them connected to that. So we're very resourceful, but we make sure that we manage our resources successfully. So I guess the thing is, what you could say is like equity is very important for us. So it's like everyone needs help. It just might look a little bit different for everyone.
Okay. Well, Glenn, I have been looking forward to your presentation for some time. I'm inspired by your values and how you've been able to realize those in your hometown. I love the principles you shared with us this afternoon, and I want to thank you once again for being here. And to our audience, I know they appreciate it as well. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again, I'm sure.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dale. I appreciate being here, and hopefully I'll be able to come back again in the future someday.
Mm-hmm.